Yo, what the hell's up? Welcome back to Reviews with Jake, where I just got done watching Scream. Scream is the 5th entry in the popular brainchild of Wes Craven, in which a bunch of people in a small town start dropping dead because of a ghost-faced killer. The same people who unmasked the assailant/assailants 25 years ago are back in the fray. Sorry for the lopsided backdrop, that shelf is needed elsewhere for a little bit. I'm up to something. What is it? Well, I'll tell you one thing, it's not another damn sequel with the same name as the original film. My god, can we stop this? However, this is the first Scream film that was not directed by Wes Craven, so maybe it is the end of an era. Maybe it's the start of something new, an actual reboot. Now, as I've mentioned before, I've never been the biggest fan of the slasher subgenre. It's just never really done much for me. All the respect in the world to Wes Craven. He is undoubtedly on the Mount Rushmore of the horror genre. It's just this franchise just never really did much for me. Granted, I will admit I have not seen them all. I've seen the first one for sure, and I actually rewatched it the night before seeing this new one for the first time in years. And I gotta admit, I actually did enjoy it a lot more this time around than I recall enjoying it way back then. Not that it was a good movie by any stretch, but I think I've developed a little bit more of an appreciation for camp than I did many years ago. So no, I don't think it's a very good movie per se, but I can't deny that it has a lot of really dumb, campy fun to it. And it definitely made me want to rewatch the first Scary Movie, another movie I have not seen in ages, and if I recall correctly, after watching that, man, they crushed that parody. But anyways, that's the first Scream film. Definitely seen that. The other ones, I don't think I've seen in their entirety. I think I've seen bits and pieces. Like a dude getting stabbed in the ear while in the bathroom stall at a movie theater. I'm pretty sure Scary Movie also spoofed that one too, but I just know I have not seen them all. Maybe bits and pieces, but I definitely haven't seen them all. I can confirm that much. Is it a legit possibility that this franchise may actually win me over if I gave them all a fair shake like I did the first film just recently? I mean, I can't deny it's a possibility, but in this day and age when there's so much stuff to watch, it's probably not gonna happen. The only way that I'm gonna get lured into watching all the other Scream films is if this one knocks it out of the park to reignite my interest in the franchise, and honestly, it might happen. The two directors of this film are responsible for some pretty cool stuff, most recently Ready or Not just a few years ago. I really enjoyed that film. They were also among the great directors that brought us the first VHS film several years ago, which now if you look at it, that tree of directors is actually pretty impressive with David Bruckner and Adam Wingard. So I mean, this film is not helmed by a couple of stooges. They know what they're doing, so maybe, just maybe, Scream might be good. Well, let's start the pros with the thing that kind of sets this franchise apart from other slasher franchises, and that is the humor. It's got some quippy one-liners, it's got some jokes, it leans into the tropes of the genre in a very self-aware way. Much like the original film, this film knows it's ridiculous and embraces it, accepts it, uses it as a weapon. It's a very meta film, much like the original, but in a more contemporary space. It kind of examines how the horror genre has transformed over the last 10 years or so that we've gotten a Scream film, and kind of pokes fun at it. In a lot of ways, honestly, if there was one horror film that would earn the ability to just be called Scream instead of Scream 5, which this technically is, I do think that it would be this film. Because not only did it do a good job of honoring the original film and what made it noteworthy, but it also tackles that very aspect of the horror genre and that trend these days. It literally mentions that films these days like to do that. They have the original title of the film instead of the fact that it's a sequel and just call it this and bring back the original cast members because that's the cool thing to do. It literally talks about it. Although I will say I think it would be infinitely more funny for them to have that rant about this trend in the horror genre and then call it Scream 5 anyway. I don't know, I think that would have been funny. But the fact of the matter is, this movie is very respectful to the original film, and I'm glad that I watched the original film before seeing this one because it made it easier for me to identify that. It really captures that tone, that feel, even down to the soundtrack. Early on in the film, when all the kids in high school are hanging out in the courtyard sitting on like a picnic table BSing with each other, they have some like 90s alternative punk rock going in the background. I'm like, man, they're really committing to this. On sort of a similar audible note, I will say that the sound design for the film was top shelf stuff. I found that particularly during each scare sequence that it did a good job of really building up that soundscape to really build that tension and lead to each individual scare. Yeah, admittedly, it's a lot of jump scares and a lot of them are very predictable and run of the mill, but when they end, My God. I say this because this is a very bloody and gory film, and I thought that gore looked fantastic. The prosthetics used for the blood and gore was fantastic. It was real stomach churning stuff. The twisted places you could insert a knife. Sheesh. The movie also had a couple noteworthy acting performances, particularly from our two main characters, the sisters, played by Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega. The rest of the cast did fine. They understood the assignment of what it's like to act in the ridiculousness of a Scream film, but these two in particular actually brought some real acting qualities and chops to the film. I was not expecting a film like this to go there, to have actual real attempts at emotional family dynamics, but these two performances actually capitalize on those attempts. However, the key word here is try, because while the acting performances were good, the lines that they were being fed were not so much, and that leads me to the cons. The writing in this film is just not good at all from any perspective, including the dialogue. I think at times this movie tried way too hard to be a Scream film, super heavy-handed with all the horror genre conversation and pop culture references. While at other moments I felt like this movie was trying way too hard to actually give us a good, compelling story with real emotional arcs and weight, and I just don't think the two of them really married very well together. I think the original film was much more committal toward the ridiculousness. It just leaned into it, whereas this movie was trying to skate both worlds at once, and when you have campy in your movie, I don't think you can have the emotional stuff to go along with it. The attempt to live on both sides of the fence at the exact same time just made the film feel clunky. It's like the humor just did not hit as much as they wanted it to, because they were also trying to make you feel stuff and dig deep. I rarely knew at any given moment if I should be ready to laugh and just let go and accept the ridiculousness, or if I should be taking this film seriously. It's like I never knew how to react to it. It almost makes me feel like I need to give more props to the actors, because I'm sure they felt the same way, like looking at a line like, is this a funny part or am I supposed to make someone cry? I think the actors were more than capable of doing either or, but I feel like this script just made them play hopscotch on the emotional spectrum. I did not find this film nearly as funny as I was hoping it would be, nor was it as transcendent as I think that it thought it was, and it just waited somewhere in the middle. This is probably largely due to some really weak character development. Like, these new characters, they just don't give you enough to give a single damn about them. And the old characters, the legacy characters coming back, two of the three of them I felt just didn't need to be in the movie. They were just kind of there because it's a Scream movie and they need to be. They weren't really given anything consequential to do. Which kind of leads me to the ending, the grand reveal. Much like the original, I did not feel like it was earned. This is not the classic murder mystery whodunit film. It's not like The Thing where you have legitimate grounds to guess who might be an alien and who is not. The original film and this film just don't really give you enough clues to actually put the pieces of the puzzle together. They just kind of give it to you all at the end at the unmasking and just punch you in the face with it. And then they throw a bunch of new information at you, new variables at the very, very end that they did not hint at the rest of the film, so it's like there was no way you could have solved the mystery for yourself while watching the film. It's like, yeah, I guess you got me. I didn't see that coming, but you know what else I wouldn't see coming is if in the original film, Sidney Prescott walks out the front door of the house and a pterodactyl swoops down and carries her off. Like, didn't see that coming either. Doesn't mean it was good. I will commend this film to give us a little bit more breadcrumbs and clues than the original one did, but it was not enough to make the revelation at the end feel full circle. And while I also commended the gore earlier in the film, I will say that the creativity behind the kills was kind of lacking. It all looked great and grotesque and everything, but I personally only watch slasher films to see outside the box kills, not just stabbing people with knives. If all the kills look the exact same, it can get a little boring. You don't have any character development or any good writing to enforce it, so you're just seeing a bunch of people you don't care about get killed in the exact same way. It can get stale. That was kind of my problem with Halloween Kills last year. It just felt like either A, Michael Myers is stabbing someone, or B, he's smashing their head off of something. It was kind of boring. This movie was even more limited than that. It was either stabbing or slicing with a knife. I mean, occasionally they would slip in a gunshot, but that's boring. At least in the original film, they had moments like the garage door kill, which was absurd, unrealistic, and defied every law of physics and mechanics, but at least it was fun. I just did not find any of that in this movie. It all looked good, but it was all pretty run-of-the-mill stuff. None of it really stood out at the end of the runtime. All in all, this movie is good. It's definitely an above-average horror movie with a great respect for the original movie. But ultimately, I just didn't find it as fun as I was hoping it would be, not even with a tall boy IPA in my hand. I'm going to give Scream a B-. But that is just me. What do you guys think? Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. And make sure you subscribe to this channel to stay up to date. New videos coming real soon. Stay safe. Thanks for checking in.